So I've got a great interview for you coming up, but my driver dropped me off at where Google said the address was, and the address isn't quite right. So let's try to find Amy together. Amy just sent me a pin on Google, which is usually a good idea in Mexico because the addresses don't always run in order. So I'm about 6 blocks away from where we should be.
Hey Brighton!
Hey Amy! Let's hop inside.
Yeah, come on in. So here we are.
Nice.
Few plants growing, very tropical. And bienvenido a mi casa. Hi everybody, my name is Amy Whitney and welcome to my home here in Puerto Vallarta. I've always been a little bit of a serial entrepreneur, love teaching, and living here in Mexico. Here in my home, I'm living in an extremely Mexican neighborhood, honestly. And around me, we have sort of a mix of different apartment buildings and houses that are here. I can enjoy all of the street food that's around my neighborhood, extremely accessible, and the corner store is literally 2 houses away. And in this area here, I was able to find a full house that I was able to rent out here in Mexico. It has 3 bedrooms. 2 of them are very, very large bedrooms. This place was fully furnished when I arrived. I absolutely love it here because of the open space that we have, as you can see around. There's a little dipping pool that I have outside, which is honestly essential here. It's extremely hot and humid in the summer, so that's where my husband and I like to spend our time. We have air conditioning, which helps to keep it comfortable here during those summer months. It has everything that I need. I'm very comfortable. It's very, I'm not going to say it's a very old house, but it's definitely an older house. It has its characteristics, but one of my favorite parts is just how really traditional looking it is, and it reminds me every day that I'm here in Mexico. So as I mentioned here, we need to have air conditioning. I'm working and teaching online, so I need to look fresh, you know. But when we first moved into this place, they had the window air conditioners in and that's what we were using. And in order for me to maintain the room temperature just at 29 degrees, I was paying I think it was 9,000 pesos, or that'd be 450 US for 2 months. And as soon as my landlord saw that, thank goodness I have a good landlord, he was like, oh no, that's unacceptable. And he offered to put in one of the inverter mini split air conditioners, and I decided to purchase the other 2 for myself because I know I can take them with me when I move. It's very easy to uninstall them and relocate them. As soon as we did that, our bill went from 9,000 pesos per month down to usually 3,500 or 4,000, which is just below 200 US. Or sorry, not per month, that's every 2 months. For 100 US per month to be comfortable and just not worry about it, I'm more than happy to pay that, honestly. Here, for this house, fully furnished, the cost of my rent is about 12,000 pesos per month, which is about 600 US. And yeah, it's pretty good value here in PV. The only thing is that we are away from the ocean, so we are able to do that trade where our rent is extremely affordable, but you know, the beach is 10 minutes driving away, which is okay.
So that's about the house and the neighborhood, but Amy has a really great story about getting here, really into Mexico, working in Mexico before she turned 40 even. So I want to have her talk about how she made that happen.
For me, I think I've always had, I don't know, this desire to have my own business, and I didn't know what it would look like, but it's kind of been a little bit of this and a little bit of that throughout the last 15 years or so of my life. When I was 21, I started my first business, which was a delivery service in Canada. But also when I was around, I think it must have been 24, I started to get into e-commerce and wanting to learn how I could make a living online. And that was kind of coinciding with the point in my life where I started to travel more. And the places that I was traveling were, hi Chester, this is my cat Chester. The places that I was traveling to and interested in traveling to were in Latin America. So that was influenced just by the fact when I was younger, I was learning Spanish and I wanted to have a way of practicing it. So during that travel discovery, I figured out that life in Mexico, Panama, Ecuador was significantly less expensive than it was in Canada. And combining that with this idea of having an online business, I realized, you know what? It's either going to take me however long to earn 6,000 or 8,000, whatever I need for my life in Canada, or for the same amount, well, for much less, 2,000 per month, let's say, I would be able to make that transition very, very quickly and maybe move abroad before I was retired. And honestly, that was, I would call it probably the North Star that was kind of just guiding me through all of the different decisions that I made over the course of about 10 years. So my initial business, I think it was an eBay business. I was selling like, the first thing that was really successful were those red mittens that they had during the Olympics. But that was kind of a flash in the pan and I had to move on to other things. So anyway, I had an online ordering software business for restaurants where I was the marketing side and I was teamed up with a software developer. That didn't work out. That's a long story and a different one, but anyway. And you know, the next one that I decided to kind of pick away at was related to English teaching. And my husband has broadcasting experience and we decided, you know, why don't we do a podcast? What are we going to talk about? I don't know. Well, we could do a podcast for English learners. And we started our podcast called Real English Conversations and have grown it over the past 5 or 6 years. We have about 10,000 downloads a day. It's a very successful podcast. And through that, we've been able to have students that come through and learn with us, teaching English to them and helping them to get from kind of an intermediate level where they can communicate up to a high level of fluency. So that's really the thing that we figured out how to do when we arrived in Mexico. And these days, after having the opportunity to live here in Mexico and actually figure out how to learn Spanish, I have been able to start a new business which is called Expat Spanish Lessons. And that one was born out of really the realization that a lot of expats are actually going through or went through the same thing I went through with Spanish, which is this very long, torturous process that often doesn't finish. A lot of people come to Mexico, they're living here, and they're just not sure how to get started in the language the right way. Most people are studying with Duolingo, or maybe they sign up for a local Spanish course and they just get inundated with grammar, and at the end of the day, they're not able to communicate. And you know, it's something that I think from afar, when you're living in Canada or the US, you don't really, you're like, oh, I think I need Spanish, it's really important. But once you're here and you realize that, you know, it's not just to be able to do the things that you need to do, it's about connection with the people around you. And I know from even the early days when I only had a little bit of Spanish knowledge, it was so, like, it's priceless. The opportunity to talk to people and have them react and understand you and to be able to communicate, it just does something really, really special. And I wanted to be able to help my fellow expats to maybe break through that barrier. So that's what I'm doing right now, which I'm really, really excited about. For me, when I was starting to learn Spanish, I had really I took the traditional way with a lot of grammar rules and memorization and things like that. And it felt like no matter what I was doing, I wasn't able to advance in the language. And honestly, I was stuck there for 14 years. So like, I know, I've tried Rosetta Stone, I've tried Duolingo, I've tried private lessons, took 5 years of Spanish. Like, I get it, it's not easy and it's not intuitive with the tools that we're given.
Okay, it's time for my free Spanish lesson. What is one key tip that you can give me and everyone else watching?
The one thing that really made all the difference for me and allowed me to get from that dysfunctional can't have a conversation level up to advanced was really starting to focus on the things that people are using in real communication. And whenever you're consuming something, whatever it is, with some sort of lesson, I just want you to remember that you have a limited space in your mind, and you want to make sure that you occupy that space with the most useful and relevant information that's going to apply to your life, particularly living here in Mexico, and kind of use that as a filter. If you can study authentic communication from people as well, you can go through and just pick out the words that they're kind of using and decide whether or not you think that it's something that you would be able to use. But that really was the turning point for me, and that's really the base of a lot of what I teach now as well, is just making sure that expats are focusing on the stuff that they actually need to know and are going to be able to use immediately, because I had to take the really long road of learning everything just to be able to try to figure out what's really useful. All right, talking about friends, I would say there are really two groups of people. We're going to have the English speaking, well actually three. There's the bilingual Mexicans, and then we have the Spanish only Mexicans. And it's interesting because when I go, for example, there are different expat groups that are around. Of course, we're speaking in English. We have a lot of similarities and things that we like, preferences, from back home, and we all enjoy. I mean, another common interest is that we're here in Mexico and we love it for one reason or another. With my Spanish-speaking friends, it's different because they just talk about different things. They talk about their day-to-day life. This is their country. So, my housekeeper, actually, she's kind of turned into a little bit of a friend, somebody that I can certainly trust. She's been able to help me care for my cats and allow us to travel around. But when I speak with her, she loves to gossip. She absolutely, there's always some sort of drama. I call it, her telenovela, where she's got something going on. So yeah, it's nice being able to see the difference between the two. And living here in Puerto Vallarta, so many people speak English, Mexicans that speak English, and I find that when I go out, even though I speak Spanish, I teach Spanish, I'm able to communicate in Spanish, no problem, a lot of the times the communication reverts to English. And I'm not sure if they're doing it because it makes us more comfortable to communicate, or if they're just wanting to practice, But anyway, that's sort of what happens. So when you're hanging out with Mexicans, I mean, sometimes I'll speak in Spanish and they'll speak in English, and we just have a conversation like that. It's okay. Here in Puerto Vallarta, I feel extremely safe. I mean, I'm not wandering around the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning, so I can't really say what the streets are like at that time, but we've had absolutely no problems. Our house, obviously, it has a lot of security in it, and I think that that's something that's just standard in a lot of the houses, especially the older ones here in Mexico. So it's kind of like the windows are kind of like a jail, honestly. Like, nobody's getting in, and in sense of safety, I feel very, very secure here in my house. But yeah, honestly, we've never had any problem. We've never had our wallets taken or anybody approach us or been made to feel uncomfortable in any way. And my neighborhood here, I think one of the things, I think it's fun because I bring people to my neighborhood and I'm like, we're going into the hood, because we have some of the apartment blocks around here, they're not really maintained very well, and I understand that the people inside the apartment, they're not the ones that are responsible for painting the outside. That's the building manager, and for him, it's not a priority. So when you come into the neighborhood, you might think, oh, this is unsafe because this building has not been painted for 3 years or 5 years, and it's looking run down. But the people inside are fine. They're normal working people. They're very friendly. They're nice. And we just have to remember that Nice looking doesn't necessarily equal safety, but at the same time, don't go against your instinct. If you feel that a place is unsafe, go with it and pay attention. When you first come up to our place, it looks like a pretty humble house. It's actually very narrow looking from the beginning, but it goes a long way back. So as soon as you come in through the door, you see this open space and a beautiful patio area where we can spend our time. And I think that happens very, very often with different houses. So those big walls that you see and you're like, I can't see through, it's a totally a metal gate or something like that. But one day you see that gate is open, and behind it is this beautiful landscaped yard and a big house, very well taken care of. So sometimes that front appearance of the house is a little bit of a facade. For us getting our residency, I would have to say it wasn't an ideal situation, but neither was moving to Mexico at 32 years old. Like, that was something that I thought, I don't want to wait. So how can I make this happen? And what happened was we just came back from a trip, kind of a discovery trip, one of the many we had taken. One was to Colombia. We had just come back. Okay, no, don't want to live in Colombia. But we decided, okay, let's find out what our house is worth, because we can't really make any plans until we have that part of the puzzle figured out. So the first quote that we got was not anything too exciting, honestly, and we were like, okay, not yet. It's okay. It's still a dream. We're still moving in that direction, but it's not going to happen right now. And there was this boom that was happening in the housing market in Kelowna at the time, and we kept hearing about the housing prices going up, and I decided to call a different realtor and just inquired what we could get. And I proposed, well, what if we replaced the dragon that we have in the basement that's a furnace that's 40 years old? What would that do to our housing value? And he actually gave us a significantly higher number, and that was the point where we were like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to happen sooner than later. We ended up calling a third realtor who gave us an even better quote a month later, and we ended up selling our house, which we purchased as a foreclosure for $240,000, and we ended up selling at $370,000, and that gave us what we needed essentially to pay off any debts that we had incurred from fixing up our foreclosure. It wasn't necessarily pretty, and also to give us the opportunity to move to Mexico. Really, at the time of selling that house, we had two choices. The first one was live in Canada for 6 months and try to figure out how to make that transition. The second one was moving to Mexico and having 2 years to do that transition. And we figured even if we failed with the Mexico one, it was still a better story, and we'd just come back to Canada with nothing anyway, and it'd be okay, we'd figure it out. So anyway, thanks to that sale of the house, we were able to have the financial solvency that we needed to apply for residency. We started with temporary residency. We didn't qualify for permanent, which was fine. We knew that with temporary, we would get our first year, and then there'd be an option to renew for 3 years. And then after that period was finished, 4 years in total, that we would be able to automatically apply and get our permanent residency, which I think we ended up getting actually earlier this year in January.
So most of the folks that are watching this channel, and most of the folks that I talk to, are older than Amy, but it just goes to show that you can do this move to Mexico at any point in time. She moved here in her mid-30s and is making a go of it. She's renting, a lot of people own, but it sounds like she probably could own here if she wanted to. I think there's a lot of great, just shows you a lot of great opportunities, and she's really created a business on her own. So if she can do it, anyone can. Just really it takes some thinking about what's possible with what skills you have, and creating something that will work online. So I've got more videos about folks in Mexico. You can catch those up here, and I'll see you in another video. Hasta luego.